Hugh, you're here representing Hacked Off, and you are particularly hacked off because the Prime Minister, the latest Tory manifesto, ended the government's commitment to have a second Leveson inquiry. But we've had I mean, there's been so much of an investigation into the behaviour of the press. Why do we need yet another one?
Well, it was always a two-part inquiry. The first part dealt with the culture and practices of the press, and, as you know, very moderate proposals were recommended by Leveson and then voted for by a cross-party agreement in Parliament into law, and are now being shelved by...
But the press is behaving better than it was, surely.
There is absolutely no evidence of that. I mean, I can give you examples. The worst examples you have, there was a woman in Ireland last year who lost her mother, her sister, and 2 children in a car accident when it slipped into the sea. And at the funeral, the Mail sent a journalist lady posing as a mourner, bringing 2 children to pretend, you know, I'm another mother, and to befriend this grieving woman. And that was then printed as an exclusive interview in the Mail. So there's that sort of thing.
But we have a regulator, IPSO, which is surely behaving, is surely showing teeth in the way that the previous... I mean, look, the previous regulator was an absolute joke.
Yeah, and polls show that the public regard this replacement of the PCC, IPSO, as less trustworthy than the PCC. This new one, branded IPSO, arrived at the great fanfare saying we're going to have £1 million fines, we're going to have front-page apologies. There's actually been no fines of any amount of money at all since it came into existence. There's been no front-page apologies and not one single investigation. So I think it is a unique regulator, and it hasn't actually done any regulating at all.
But the other regulator, sort of funded by a wealthy individual, a controversial individual, Max Mosley, I mean, is that the way to go? That's the one that's authorised.
It doesn't... There is a regulator funded by a charity that he set up in memory of his son, who committed suicide in the wake of the lies written about Max Mosley in the News of the World, the lies that he was involved in a Nazi-themed orgy, which he sued for libel over and won. So he set up a fund in his son's name, and that has contributed to the setting up of one particular regulator called Impress, which is recognised, but it's not the one that newspapers are encouraged to join. It's a good regulator, they could join, but they could equally set up their own regulator, so long as it goes along with the very moderate terms of the recognition body.
Now, you know what people will say about your intervention, that this is just celebrity whinging and you benefited perfectly well from publicity and, you know, it's all about you.
Well, I have 2 things, I think, to say about that. One is... 3 things, perhaps. One is, it really doesn't do me any good to take the tabloid press on full frontal for 6 years. It's the reverse of that, I can assure you. Secondly, with the exception of Steve Coogan, who comes and goes with Hacked Off, I think I'm the only so-called celebrity, a word I abhor, who's involved in the whole thing. Our key supporters are people like Sheila Hollins, whose daughter, Abigail Witchells, was stabbed by a madman, left in a quadriplegic state in hospital, and medical records stolen and printed in the News of the World. It's people like the Watson family in Glasgow, whose daughter was murdered in the playground, and their son then committed suicide because the newspapers said she deserved to be murdered. It's people like that. I mean, that Watson family on the radio a few years ago saying, "Thank God for Hacked Off." That's what keeps me going.
You want newspapers, in your view, to behave more responsibly. You've engaged in the great political debate we're all involved in. You call the Prime Minister a demented little Rotarian.
Yeah.
But doesn't that demean the quality of debate, that sort of personal insight?
Well, I feel unbelievable anger on behalf of these people that I've worked with over the last 6 years, and who relived the suffering that they went through. They've been through big tragedies.
I mean, it just sounds so snobbish, a demented little Rotarian.
They were given personal promises by the last Tory Prime Minister, both in Parliament and to their faces, that Leveson would be seen through, that they would be protected, whatever the outcome of it, they would be the ones who were important. And now this Prime Minister for short-term political gain, i.e. sucking up to the Daily Mail and Rupert Murdoch, to get herself good headlines, to get herself elected, and in fact probably to get herself the leadership of the Conservative Party, throws it all away. It's an act of quite extraordinary
what are you looking
treachery.
for?
A letter from Christopher Jeffreys. Do you remember Christopher Jeffreys?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And I've seen that letter, and it is, you know, it's a powerful letter. Look, very lovely to have you on the show. I'm going to go off and say a little prayer that Middlesbrough play well today. Blooming heck, that was another action-packed show. My thanks to Bozza, Bazza, Caroline, Jess, Nick and Hugh. Today is, of course, the last day of the campaign that probably matters most to most people, the Premier League. See you next week.